gonna go with mold in the walls, making them too horny. That's my top theory. Hello, and welcome to Bad Book Bingo, the game where I read a terrible book and try to get bingo. I'm your host, Victoria. On today's episode, we are looking at The Sutton Asylum by Kincaid. I was specifically looking for something that was like a haunted house, but horror. This popped up when I was looking for that on the Kindle Unlimited shop, deep in the recesses of it. And I was like, everyone loves a haunted asylum. I love a good haunted asylum. Plus a romance? What's not to love? I did not realize what I was getting into with this. I should have read the descriptions a little more closely. This is on me. This is on me for doing this to myself. Before we get into things, I'm just gonna pop the trigger warnings up. This is not a complete list, but you should read them. Look, I know that haunted asylum plots can often be problematic with the way that they portray mental health issues. That is the least of this book's worries. If you're still willing to proceed after that, let's just take a quick look at the bingo board. Okay, this is what we got. I feel like I'm gonna get bingo on this one. I feel good about it. See, if I get bingo, I'm giving myself a prize, which is probably gonna be alcohol, given that I had to read this book. If I don't get bingo, then I just have to live with the consequences of my actions. So here we go. Let me tell you the tale of the Sutton Asylum. Oh boy. So this book has two point of views. We have the point of view of Jasper, one of the twins, and we have the point of view of Iris, the other twin. We sometimes get a third character. We get like a couple chapters on a third character, but it's mostly Jasper and Iris going back and forth. So they're a couple of twins. In the opening scene, I think they're like 17, 16. They're like really into each other. Like a little too into each other, you know? The book opens with Jasper's point of view, and he is watching, tied to a chair, as his parents begin to do unspeakable things to Iris, who is in her underwear, strapped to a table. I was not fucking kidding about the trigger warnings on this book, okay? I was not kidding. So we already have a bunch of things to add to bingo. Let's see. We have, okay, illegal shit. Absolutely. We then have couldn't read this in public also because what I mean by that is just the facial expressions that I would make would cause people concern. So we start out strong. Jasper is upset, obviously, to see Iris in this way. Iris is being punished like this because their parents caught them boinking too many times. And instead of doing anything instructive about it, they're doing this. So I'm also going to check off over the top past, because this is wild. Jasper watches as Iris is strapped to this table and things are about to get pretty serious. And she manages to dislocate one of her hands, pull it through the straps, and manages to grab her father by the hair and bash his head in. Which, great, cool. He deserved that, objectively. Their mother is also in the room. She's like sort of not really doing anything. Iris manages to fully escape her bonds. She does some things to her father. And then Jasper is free and they do some things to their mother. Oh boy. Yeah, so we're gonna also immediately check off I would kill for you, because not only do they murder their parents, they really have a good time doing it. Um, Iris says later that the one thing she regrets is that they weren't able to then do this in their parents' blood. So these people are... You can see where we're going with the asylum bit, right? Like, you can see how we ended up there. Yeah. So that's the prologue. Oh boy. I'm just gonna cross off I would kill for you and also orphan, because they just murdered their parents. So, one thing that's also mentioned in the prologue, before I forget, is they have like this twin connection thing. There's nothing really supernatural about this book. It's very slashery. I'm a paranormal girl. I like a good ghost story. I was a little disappointed that this didn't actually end up having any ghosts. Kind of a bummer, but again, my bad for not reading the description. They have like this twin connection thing where they can read each other's thoughts. This has no impact on the plot whatsoever. It's brought up a couple of times. It feels like the author brings it up here. She forgets about it for like 45% of the book, brings it up a couple more times, and it has absolutely like no plot significance whatsoever. I just felt the need to mention that it was in here. Jasper and Iris have been captured by the cops. They've been taken to Sutton Asylum, which is this rambling Victorian mansion that was turned into a hospice home asylum thing. I was hoping that things would be a little more atmospheric around like the creepy old Victorian mansion full of serial killers, but didn't really get any of that. I really kind of wanted that out of this. So they've been in there for a couple years. They've kind of adjusted to life. We open with Jasper's point of view. The thing that surprises me the most is that they get to share a room. You would think that they would separate them. I think the author is going for a, like, you couldn't possibly have separated us. We would have killed everybody to get our way and, like, all of that. But, like, those two should be separated. So Jasper opens with describing Iris's body inappropriately. And then we get that there are two nicknames for Iris. Riss, because you really needed a nickname for a girl whose name is only 4 letters. Riss doesn't really roll off the tongue. But he also calls her Savage a lot, which makes sense based on her personalities. But I'm just gonna check off bad nickname. Apparently, Iris is even more horny and unhinged than she used to be. So we get the sense that like Jasper is kind of the more reserved one, and Iris is kind of the more unhinged, impulsive one, if you can guess. Like, they're both terrible people, but like there's definitely like a dynamic there. It feels like Iris is very much driving the ship, because Iris mostly is fucking terrifying. They basically run the asylum. They refer to themselves as the king and queen of the asylum often, and it seems like everybody else kind of agrees with this. The staff, other than a couple people who we will meet, basically leaves them alone, basically lets them do whatever they want. The other patients let them do whatever they want, which, if I was locked in an asylum with a bunch of impulsive slasher people with homicidal tendencies, I would too. I would let them do whatever they wanted. That's not my job to fix that. It really seems like they're living their best life here. Like, this is the best they could have hoped for, given how much they like murder. And you gotta be happy for them. We get our first explicit sex scene pretty early on. This is erotica. Let's be clear. You thought I was setting you up for like a cozy little twincest romance set in an asylum. No, this is erotica. There is we go into detail. Many times. Anyway, these are some kinky people. It's not particularly my kinks, but they are having a great time. A lot. They're having a lot of great times. The sex scene, the quality of the writing in the sex scene is fine. It irks me that they're just like talking like they're in a porn movie. Like, Nobody talks like that. Nobody dirty talks like that in real life. Even if you're really trying, it just doesn't come off sounding like anything a real human would say. Anyway, we finally get a chapter in Iris's point of view. She is even hornier than Jasper. She makes sure that we know that they fuck at least 3 to 4 times a day, which frankly sounds exhausting. Maybe I'm just a prude, but I am tired thinking about that. It's too much. Every single day, like, I get they have nothing better to do, but like, they're so horny all the time. Like, so horny all the time. It has to, like, don't really get a breather, you know? I feel like you'd get sore, be chafing. There's also a plot tidbit that they, like, dress really nicely because they're secretly millionaires after their parents' death. So the asylum lets them wear whatever they want. They just, like, dress cool for their asylum peeps. It makes no sense. And we never get a reference to this again, really, until, like, the very, very, very end, when it doesn't even matter. There's just, like, a lot of plot threads that you think are gonna go places, and they never go anywhere. It's like important information completely forgotten. Just bye-bye. So there are also millionaires. And they can spend their money. Pretty sure if you murder the person you're supposed to be getting the inheritance from, you don't actually get the inheritance. Not exactly sure what happens, but, like, pretty sure you don't get that. They fuck a lot. They dress nicely. They basically run the show. The food is a little lackluster in there. They admit that the food is a little lackluster. They wish they had better food. That's fair. We see them going into, I guess, the cafeteria area. I don't really have a good sense of, like, how this place is laid out, what the place looks like. I have a lot of questions about just, like, the logistics of this place that I will never get answers to. In the cafeteria, we meet basically one of our only significant side characters, Dex, who is basically their pet. Iris refers to him as her baby, her pet. Jasper sees that, also kind of, like, shares that it's her pet, because Dex doesn't really talk a lot. He's like this big hulking, big hulking guy, doesn't really talk a lot. Very sweet and tender, will murder everyone for Iris because she's his mama. I don't know. They don't actually, like, have sex with him, which I was afraid was gonna happen, so that's good, at least. I'm gonna check off cute pet, even though it's human. It's not good. It's not good. Don't blame me for this. Dex, for the record, at least seems as consenting to this relationship as one could expect that he would be. It's clearly unhealthy, but less unhealthy than the relationship between Jasper and Iris. And if the people at the asylum are just letting that slide, then anything goes, I guess. We are also introduced to Nurse Karen, who is just a woman trying to do her job. Obviously, Iris and Jasper hate her. I'm a little bit rooting for Karen at this point. If I had to deal with Iris and Jasper, I would also have no patience. She seems to be the only one actually trying to set boundaries with them. Unsuccessfully, I will add. She doesn't actually seem to be that effective, even though she tries. Probably because she has no help. Iris and Jasper have figured out that they can do whatever they want, and there are no consequences, and she's only a nurse and can only do so much about that, so I feel kind of bad for Nurse Karen. She deserves better. She needs a vacation. So, in between eating and fucking and cuddling their pet, they do actually have time to go to therapy, which is a relief. We meet Dr. Henry Peters, who is this very hot guy in, like, his mid-50s, we get the sense. Iris has a crush on him. Jasper's totally fine with this. Just nice, he's not too possessive. Mostly. That's good. Yeah, I'm sure this won't come up later, right? It'll be fine. During this therapy session, the doctor doesn't really say anything meaningful. I feel like he's real bad at his job. I don't know why the twins got sent to Sutton Asylum specifically, but they should have been sent literally anywhere else. This guy is not doing anything. He kind of threatens them with just putting them on enough medication that they're sedated all the time, which is kind of a lazy way out. But clearly there needs to be some sort of boundary in place. Iris talks very gleefully about how Nurse Karen's predecessor, she threatened her with a sharpened spork, and she was eventually taken away on a stretcher, completely catatonic and insane. Which feels like a stretch. Like, another part of the problem with this book, not necessarily a problem, but like an interesting way to think about it, is that we are only seeing things through the eyes of Jasper and Iris. People who clearly do not have a great grasp on reality and clearly do not have the perspective that most sane people would have. Like, we all know that Nurse Karen is just doing her job and just desperately trying to get these kids the help that they so desperately need. But obviously they don't see it that way, and they're reacting appropriately based on that point of view. So it's kind of interesting to see how far we're willing to trust these narrators. There's never like a big reveal of like, oh, it was this all along and they were wrong. It was just like the way that they tell the story. I'm kind of thinking they just kind of poked her a little and it was fine. I don't really believe all of the bragging that she's doing. That said, Iris does really have a lot of very violent fantasies. And if she has threatened staff members in the past and potentially caused them a lot of harm, the only consequence that they've seemed to have from that is going down to the basement, which is just like essentially being thrown in like a holding cell in isolation. We find out later Iris also got some electric shock therapy, which she really enjoyed. Glad she had a great time with that. Didn't really seem to do much. But just there's no lasting consequences or steps that this hospital is taking to protect people. But I feel like someone needs some sort of security guard, something. Like, I'm not saying sedate them until they're comatose all the time, but like, these people are a threat. You should do something about that. Anyway, so the doctor's pretty useless, but he's hot, so we'll put a pin in that for later. One interesting thing I find is the point of views overlap in a couple chapters, so we get the same scene twice in a row. Like, not the exact same scene, but like bits of the same scene with like the same lines repeated, and it kind of feels like the author's just trying to pad her word count a little. This is only like 180 pages, so like it's not a big book. We're not trying to like... So I feel like if she was going for a novella, she didn't really have to pad it like that. There's a lot of sex scenes in this middle part. Fun game if you want to take a shot every time she says ropes of jizz. Again, I don't understand how, if they're fucking like 4 to 12 times, it seems like an endless amount of times per day. I don't understand how it's ropes every time. Jasper is really quite something. He absolutely could have a career in porn. Jasper also gives them his and hers matching prison tattoos with a paperclip, so that's fun. He has mine tattooed here, and she has yours tattooed, I think, like right here on her neck, so it's the whole thing. It's not my idea of romance, but it's someone's. For no reason in particular, just because they want to cause chaos, Iris starts a little mini riot in the common room. Very easily. All she had to do was jump up and make a speech. It really feels like she's just doing this because she's bored. I think there was a plot reason at some point where it sort of made sense, but it doesn't end up being anything. The plot here is very thin. It really rides just on Iris's personality and her idea that she's been slighted by the doctor and Karen, and she just wants revenge on everybody. But sure, it's thin, but it's there, I guess. There's really not a whole lot of like conflict or drama within the twin relationship. They seem to always be on the same page, always reading each other's thoughts, apparently. It's never explicitly said that she's like not saying these things out loud, so it really just, it's they're just having a conversation. It didn't have to be like a weird mind thing, but okay. So then during the riot, while everyone is distracted, Iris and Jasper go over to the doctor's office and do some bad things to him. Not pointy, sharp, bloody things, but other things. I never thought that I would feel sympathy for a 55-year-old psychiatrist having a relationship with his 19-year-old patient, but yeah, Kinsley Kincaid made that happen. I feel bad for this guy. Yeah. So as a result of this, the evil nurses take their pet, Dex, to punish them because I guess throwing them in the basement never works. Doesn't really make sense. And again, I feel like this could be one of the things. I'm willing to give the author some rope on this. That, like, Iris does not understand why Dex is being taken and, like, there were other things going on that she wasn't privy to. We'll say that. We'll pretend that that's happening. So, like, as part of the punishment, Dex is taken away to the basement. Iris has a total mental breakdown. She's just inconsolable. She's, like, comatose for days. She's actually letting the hospital medicate her, even. But eventually, after a little bit of a pep talk from Jasper, she's like, no, we must get our Dexy back. He needs his mama. This girl is 19. It's weird. We then get the scene where she, after a few days of being sick, basically, she comes back into the cafeteria and everyone claps for their queen. It really feels like this scene was just ripped straight from Tumblr. Like, she walks in and everyone claps. Oh, I forgot to check off Jasper's rippling muscles, because he does have rippling muscles. So let me just do that. Let me update that real quick. I will also say overpowered character, because there's no way an actual patient would run an asylum like this. So we'll just say that. We are so close to bingo, my friends. So exciting. Iris decides that the best plan of action is to get revenge on the doctor for taking Dex away. We get this marvelous quote. She basically just goes up to the doctor and threatens him. Nothing actually happens. The doctor doesn't really do anything about this. He's just like, yeah, okay, get out of my office. I would have a stronger response, personally. Especially after what she's already done to him. But, okay. So, Iris threatens him, and then just like a whole bunch of boinking happens. It's honestly truly mind-boggling, especially for Jasper. Like, okay, I counted 4 orgasms for him, and then they're like, yeah, and we've just fucked for hours afterwards. Hours. And it just has to be, it's not physically possible. It shouldn't be physically possible to do this every day. It's insane. These people, I don't know what, something in the, like, mold in the walls, maybe. This old Victorian asylum. We're gonna go with mold in the walls, making them too horny. That's my top theory. Anyway, after they do a bunch of that, just spend a whole day on that, I guess, to make up for lost time. Jasper manages to find the hallway camera, which is hidden in, like, the eye of one of the paintings in the hallway. They make it sound like, oh, the doctor was watching us this whole time, and like it's this big reveal. They're in a hospital. There should be cameras everywhere. Not, like, hidden away, but just, like, cameras everywhere. Jasper manages to get, like, a shard of mirror during this whole, like, looking for the camera thing. And they are way too into cutting each other with it. Oh boy. They really like blood. So after they finish cutting each other up and licking the blood off of each other, as you do, they go to, like, the main common room, and one of the, basically, like, Karen's underling pulls them aside and is like, hey, I don't agree with what they're doing to Dex. Here's the keys. Really stretching the limits of my suspension of disbelief here. It's really, really stretching it. So they immediately kill her, that helpful nurse, which I don't want to say the nurse deserved it or that it was her fault, but like she maybe should have thought a little bit before giving the keys of an asylum to the most violent patients there. Maybe. So they go down the basement, they unlock it. Dex was being abused, so they rescue him. He's happy, everybody's happy. And then they're like, okay, now we need to go get revenge. So they go up to the doctor's office. They kill just like a couple of people on the way. It's not a big deal. But they are covered in blood by the time that they get there. The doctor is concerned. This guy really should have had a panic button installed in his desk like years ago. Or like a lock on his door even. Something. Literally any security step could have been taken. But anyway, it's too late for that. Terrible things happen to him. Karen also walks in at a certain point and gets involved in the shenanigans, shall we say. I will not be describing this. I don't know. I can't be demonetized because I'm not monetized. But if there's like an opposite of demonetization, like if they're going to charge me to say terrible things on the internet, I feel like that scene would trigger it for sure. After they're kind of like done, they don't kill Karen completely, but the doctor is definitely like, Iris goes and announces on the intercom that it's prom night. Because I mentioned before in one of the earlier chapters that they didn't care about like not being able to finish school. They didn't like ever get an education in the asylum because they're in there for life, so they wouldn't need it. But they did wish that they had prom night. So they're announcing that it's prom night. It's prom night, baby. I didn't go to prom, but according to them, prom is full of blood, cannibalism, and fire. They give a lighter to the resident arsonist, and the inevitable happens, of course. Everyone makes it out, aside from the staff. And they just kind of like completely unprepared, just walking around in their whatever clothes they had on their back. No food, no water, nothing, not a compass, not a cell phone. They just start walking. And despite not having a map or a cell phone or anything, they eventually manage to just straight up wander their way back to their old house where it all started. Oh, the memories. Their old house has been abandoned for a long time. They find their dad's old stash of money, but then make a point of like not using it ever. They just go around stealing from other people, so they don't really have to go to the store very often. So it really feels like the bag of money was not a necessary plot point. But basically they hide up in that boarded out house, stealing things from the neighbors. It's a happy ending, I guess. And in the very last chapter, there's a little surprise for Dex. Iris and Jasper have kidnapped the woman next door as a present for Dex. And you can read that story. I believe it's out now. Yeah, I really thought I was going to hit bingo on this one. We could say that there's too many in the series because 2 is too many for this series. So we'll say that. We'll also say not physically probable because there's, first of all the fucking. Second of all, they were walking around in the woods for at least 5 days, it sounded like, with like eating berries and drinking river water, which like, no. No. So we're gonna hit that. So we almost got bingo. It's disappointing. But yeah, that was Sutton Asylum. Thank you for sticking with me throughout that entire plot. That was a wild ride. Also, thank you to Kinsley Kincaid for providing us with this entertainment. It has good reviews on Goodreads. There are people who are real into this. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed going on this little ride with me. I will see you next time.